When you're trying to guard the value of your cards and new sets like Dominaria drop and you wonder what's going to be inside, what new combinations will be found, that's why you've got to pay attention, because this can happen. Hi everyone and welcome back. MTG Moxman here, and thanks a lot for hanging out with me on my YouTube channel today. Every new set lately, it seems like I'm hearing players hope for certain cards, certain reprints to come around, a certain new combination to make an older deck more exciting and come around again. But really, I think people should be looking at the value of their cards. People who are asking for certain reprints that don't come around, make note of that. Pay attention to the reprint you didn't see, the combination you hoped for that didn't happen. We didn't get a lot of new Infect, even though Phyrexians attacked Dominaria. But we now have a whole set of cards coming up that are going to be Phyrexian based. All we got was kind of a Johnny, right, with the Infect thing, but you don't know what's coming around the block and what Wizards may do with Infect in the next year. We're back on Dominaria and people are so stoked for Timeless Lotus because it can do everything. Too soon? Yeah, I know. I can't help myself. Every video I gotta make fun of that card. But at the same time, people hope for certain reprints of cards. They want these things to be good. Wizards of the Coast on Dominaria gave us newer, low casting cost planeswalkers, though. They gave us lower casting cost legendary creatures, which makes other cards from the last few years that much more effective. The lower legendary creatures mean more commander decks of different types. Wizards wants to expand on that. Paying attention to those cards in the market, those that should be reprinted and haven't been, because Wizards protects the reprint equity and they're being a little more careful about it the last little while I've been at it. I can see them with certain cards that I expected to get a reprint and it didn't happen. So now you have to wait another whole year to see what comes around, and the prices will go up on some of these cards. You got to pay attention to this stuff. I know it can be a real bummer to say this card is that expensive and you're telling me I have to wait another year or two for a reprint. That's what Wizards does. They're making sure the game has value being driven into it by reprinting cards less and less, and when they do reprint, they make it into a harder to get slot and they put other junky things inside. It is their MO nowadays. So let's go ahead, let's look at some cards you should be following and paying attention to, and I'll be making some commentary in the background because I have a lot to say about some of these cards. I'll see you guys in a few seconds. Hang in there everyone, we're going to get there together. So guys, here we are. We're starting out with Time Stretch. Now, this is the 10th edition version. It's only been reprinted once, and that was in this edition. Look at the price. It's been tanking a little bit, which is kind of good for those who want to get their hands on it. But Time Stretch for a foil is ridiculously priced because it's an older foil style card, very pricey. But the average price for this reprint is 25 bucks. Remember guys, for those who didn't know, Time Stretch is pay 10 mana but take 2 extra turns. With all the ways of copying things, paying 0 mana to cost out spells nowadays, depending on what you draw, there are lots of ways of engineering decks where you really won't have to pay this mana to cast this spell. Wizards is becoming, I want to say almost like shy about printing and reprinting cards like this. Elrond's Epiphany got banned really quick for a reason. It could be abused. I had whole decks built around on Arena and I was mobbing people, and so were a lot of other players. Cards like Time Stretch are even more abusable when built into a proper commander deck or older vintage style decks. Whatever you want to play it in, you have to understand this card has a lot of uses to it, which means it may come around possibly in a reprint set like a double flip trip Masters, but the chance of ever seeing it in a regular edition set again become more and more rare with each passing year. This thing's what, 12, 13 years old since the last reprint? They're just letting value slowly drip into a card like this. Now, I would spend the extra few bucks and go for the original version, but at the same time, this is pretty cool looking artwork. It's something to pay attention to. And at 25 bucks a copy, it's not the end of the world to pay for that price. I just didn't realize when I bought mine for 5 bucks each that it would ever reach these levels. It is going down a bit, but I don't think it's actually going to trend too much further down. Players don't pay attention to every card, so when things like this happen, it's best to take advantage of it when you have the opportunity. Now our next card is the Curse of Cabal. This is Time Spiral. Not a super expensive card, but with all the stuff we've seen come around in Dominaria Unite, you have to take an extra look at cards like this. It is a 10 casting cost, 1 black, 9 other. Target player sacrifices half their permanents he or she controls, rounded down. In Commander, this can be a brutal card, and if you have tons of permanents out, more than your opponents, all kinds of treasure tokens and insane things, then let's face it, you can get this out ahead of your opponents and really just basically wreck everyone else's opportunity to win. And people don't see that coming yet. The suspendability can be okay, but it really doesn't matter. It's going to hurt people right away. They're going to have to deal with it. And if you have a way of building your deck around things like this, or getting cards like this out using simple tactics like treasure tokens, investigate tokens, you can really make this work in your favor. I can see decks like this happening. It's just, I know it's an inexpensive card, but go for an original version if you need a card like this, and pay attention to the fact that they're less likely to reprint this because it doesn't have a high value. Nothing's driving it forward, but if it sees a lot of play, it just might get there, okay? Now our next card, All is Dust. This has been reprinted a lot. They've driven the value down. They've made sure, it's under 10 bucks. So now you have to ask yourself, what is the likelihood that they are going to reprint a card like this in the future? If you own it, I hope you have an OG original Rise of the Eldrazi. I actually don't like the art as new as some of the cool fan art and stuff I've seen made, but I have to admit, this has a lot of uses. The more we get Karns and other colorless planeswalkers and spells, and yes, you can use Eldrazi decks out there, people. I know we're not seeing them come around anytime soon, but we can use the cards. Each player sacrifices all colored permanents he or she controls. It is very easy with the original Eldrazi to create colorless decks and have some fun, but you don't even have to do that. This can be basically a board wipe for you using colorless mana. People don't see it. They don't see it coming. I've used it myself, and I didn't care if I was sacking a lot of permanents because I prepared for it ahead of time. A very good card that is now at a very good price point for people, which means Wizards is, again, less likely to reprint it now that it's gone to the bottom of the barrel. They're not bringing that card around for the next couple of years, probably up to 5 years from now. Doubling Season. Oh my God, I don't own one. I looked around, I thought I had one, and I don't. So this is the Double Masters version, guys. When you take a look at Doubling Season, don't forget, this has had reprints. It's been around the block, but it is a mythic, and they do make it hard to get. This is one of those cards that can just wreck people. It is a splash color. It's 1 green, 4 generic. Remember cards like this and just say, yep, pay attention to it. If you have a chance to get it in that $60, $70 range, that's not a bad price. Would I pay the full price point right now? No. I think a card like this at this value will get reprinted. They will bring it back around again in the next year or so. So if you can hold off, if you can use a proxy, if you can use something to fill out your deck for now, even if you don't want to use proxies, use something real, whatever you have, right now until you can honestly get one. I think we're going to see a reprint in the next, the next 24 months for sure. It's just too high, and Wizards doesn't like to stick cards at this level for very long. It's due for a reprint, and so are some other cards on the list today. Now our next card, this had a buyout. Okay, this is Sezian Perverter of Truth. Look at the jump, look at the spike, and that's because of Sheoldred. Okay, the Apocalypse. Now, when we take a closer look at this card, this is 2 black, 3 other, which fits in perfect with the Apocalypse's, color wheel. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player loses 2 life and draws 2 cards. Well, what does Sheoldred do? Look at what it does. You lose 2 life, and then you draw 2 cards, which means they're going to lose 2 more life. So, yeah, you're going to lose 2 life, and you're going to gain 2 life because you own Sheoldred, and the opponent is going to be losing 6 life a turn. That is brutal. And you're going to see it in Commander because this card got bought out for a reason, guys. Honestly, you got to own one. If you're going to build a deck like this, you're going to have to find it. People got in on this really early. They wiped out the market. It makes perfect sense, guys. And yeah, the price will come down. Okay? You don't have to buy this right now. Put it on your list of cards to buy. Wait 9 months. This will drift back down. This is a knee-jerk reaction to the market. It will come down in price. Be patient. Our next card, Cascading Cataracts. A very underutilized, underpriced card right now that a lot of players can enjoy. Now, it does add colors to your mana pool, but just like a Timeless Lotus, you can pay 5 mana. This doesn't come into play tapped. And look, you can get any color combination of mana you want. Isn't that beautiful? It's just so superior. and you can splash this into a multicolored deck, especially now with Joda the Unifier and all of these 5-color decks coming up. This will be a unifying card in your deck to give you the mana base you need to make spell effects and things go off in the proper order that you've designed your deck for. Pay attention to this card from Amonkhet. It is going to go places, okay? The way we're doing this multicolored theme right now a lot, cards like this will start to be gobbled up. It hasn't happened yet. That's why I'm putting it out there for you guys now, so you can get it at the lower price of like the $5, $6 range it's at right now. That's what you want to get in at. If this thing ends up having a big boom or a big hit, or hits it big in some deck at some tournament, it's going to be a $20 card, or it might even go higher. So keep an eye on it. I think this thing can go places. Now, our next card today is going to be Urza, the Lord High Artificer. He's been on my list before, but I got to drill this home a bit. 55 bucks, I get it. But everyone right now is speculating that in the Brothers War, we are going to have a new Urza Planeswalker or a new Urza card. We don't know how it's going to pair off against the Modern Horizons version. You don't know what they're planning. But when you look at cards like Karn, the Living Legacy, he makes Power Stone artifacts for free. But look at what he does, right? And you see, oh, he taps an untapped artifact you control to get blue mana. All these combinations of mana, all these ways of getting things pumped up for your mana pool can mean devastating effects to your opponent. And we don't know what Urza is going to come around. If it's a worse Urza, this guy's going to go up in price. If it's a better Urza, this guy will probably go down a bit temporarily or level off, because chances are Wizards isn't going to make him worse than this one. They may make him some kind of parallel power that works in unison with this card. And that's something to pay attention to, because his price could spike just because of that. So if you don't have one, 55 bucks will seem pretty reasonable. He will eventually go back up again. It's going to happen. They're not going to reprint him that often. Now, our next card is Mox Tantalite. This is just what I need to hit home once in a while to remind people. Wizards of the Coast can make any card good if they want it to. If they want to make this card good, it will be good. That's just how they do things. If they decide this card needs to have value, it says suspend 3 and 0. Rather than cast this card from your hand, pay 0 and exile it with 3 time counters on it. At the beginning of your upkeep, remove a time counter. When the last one is removed, cast it without paying its mana cost. So, the good news is you can have 4 of these in your deck. Amazing. Too bad this wasn't in like a standard rotation deck. It wouldn't seem that bad. But in Modern, this thing is incredibly slow. Okay? Incredibly slow. Having only 1 in your deck for a commander seems redundant. It isn't going to really help you out much unless you can find some way of getting this thing out faster, getting it out quicker, getting rid of the suspend counters. Okay. Can Wizards do that? They gave us Jorah's Time Bug, which can remove these counters, but that's a little bit slow. But can they do it? Yes, they can. They can create a 1 casting cost legendary creature comes into play and remove a suspend counter from target card. Remove 2 suspend counters. They can have an instant that costs 1 blue that says remove X amount of time counters or suspend counters. They can do whatever they want. So you can't actually sleep on cards like this and ignore them, because they could become good when Wizards decides it's time to make a card good. They have a habit of making cards good when they need the value to go up. That is no different. This card is designed poorly. It is designed badly right now, but it doesn't have to stay badly. It may need a card to trigger it to go off, but if anything in history has told me that that can happen, it can and it will when Wizards decides it's time. I didn't go big into this card. I think I have like 3 or 4 play sets of it, because I was still really leery about how they would design it. But as time has gone by, I can kind of say, yeah, this card could go somewhere if Wizards decides it needs to have value. And that's the funny thing, if they decide. Now, Mox Amber, and that's why we're talking about Mox Tantalite. Here is Mox Amber. It has had a massive price spike. Okay, in the last couple of days, it's gone up $10 or $11. You're probably seeing it on other channels. But let's face it, this is my channel's namesake. I am MTG Moxman. For those who have been around my channel a lot, you will know why. If you're new around my channel and you don't know why I'm saying this, go back and watch my old videos. You will have fun looking this card up. Mox Amber, 0 casting cost, came out in Dominaria 2018. Add 1 mana of any color among legendary creatures and planeswalkers you control. When this card came out, every single person, save 1 or 2 people in the whole world, said this was junk. It's ridiculous. Why would anyone use it? Well, it does look ridiculous back in 2018. It didn't look that good. But when you actually look at what they did, They did it just like Mox Tantalite. The card doesn't look good at first, but if you're a person who understands what Wizards does, you know they're going to give us lower casting cost planeswalkers, lower casting cost legendary creatures to make this card trigger. We have Rogoth, Son of Rogoth, and he's a 0 casting cost, which means I could get red from that right away. You have older cards like Reese the Redeemed, tap for green or tap for white. Wizards has given us low casting cost legendary creatures, planeswalker cards that can make this trigger. They drove value into the card, which means that's why I think you can't really ignore Mox Tantalite. It's not very expensive right now. It might be okay to buy a playset if you need it, in case you think maybe it'll go up at some point in the future. And remember, guys, any of these cards, if you're thinking about buying them using TCG Player, please use my affiliate link. It does help me out. It's in the description of all my videos. Just click the link. It takes you right to TCG Player, and you can start your shopping, and that definitely helps the channel out. But look at what this card's at. The foil is $100 US, okay? I have a lot of foils. I have lots of regular copies of this card, and I will be unloading some of them. The value is too high now. A lot of players thought this would come around again in Dominaria United. People thought maybe it'll come around. But I knew they would probably save it for a specialty set. Even remastered, maybe as a list card, but now that the value is going up this way, they're probably going to save it for a double flip trip master, something along those lines, where they know they can drive some value like a Chrome Mox way into the card. So don't expect it in a regular reprint. And that means the price is going to hit that $60, $70 level pretty fast. It's gone up quick, but it can drop quick. This card's gone up and down like a yo-yo based on how popular the card is in any format, which means this is a good time for me to unload a few copies here and there and make a few extra dollars for myself. And I put a significant investment in this card, so it's time to reap some rewards. I wasn't going to at first. I'm going to keep a lot of them, and I'll keep some for the channel, but this is too high even for me to ignore. Cards like this can happen, guys, which is why I pay attention to so many cards, especially in artifacts. You don't know if things are going to trigger off to make the card just go bling. Now, the last card I'm sharing with you guys today, Blight Colossus. Here's the Mirrodin Besieged version. Now, this guy's a beast. He is an 11/11. He's got Trample, he's got Infect, and he's indestructible. So remember, if you get 10 poison counters, the game's over. If Blight Colossus would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, reveal it and shuffle it into its owner's library instead. That's kind of cool. It's 12 casting cost, but is that really hard to get out nowadays in a Commander game? Is that hard to get out in a lot of the games you may play? That's why Infect decks, if they come back around, cards like him are going to go up. Okay, he's been on a bit of a downward trend. He's been reprinted in Double Masters, what was that, 2020, I think, right? You guys can correct me if I'm wrong. I look at it and say, yeah, cards like that may have some good times ahead of them, but at the same time, it poises him for a reprint in another Master Series set, because he's at that price point where Wizards gets a little bit leery and says, ooh, he's a pretty high, expensive card. Maybe we need to bring him down to earth and bring him down to a $50, $60 card, like Doubling Season. It needs to come down, and hopefully players can afford it. But the way that Wizards has been doing their reprints and the reprint equity right now, it is not really fair. They're putting a few key cards in, like an Imperial Seal, which was awesome. I was so stoked. But they're leveraging that against all kinds of junky mythics. So they actually give you more mythics in a set, but less really key ones you'd like to get your hands on, and a lot of ones you'll tend to ignore. So with this in mind, it lets me realize that some of these cards are just not going to come back around again. Some of these cards are less likely to ever get a reprint because of how Wizards is playing the game right now and the style of game they want us as players to play in a lot of the formats. So it's something to keep in mind. Some of these cards are a bargain basement deal right now. Others hopefully get a reprint and bring that price down. You guys get to decide that. I'd like to know your comments in the comments section about how you feel about these cards. What do you think is going to happen? It's important, guys. Thanks a lot for tuning in. Thanks for hanging out with me on the channel today. Really hope you enjoyed the content. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Stick around for a while. We have a lot of fun here each and every day. I'll see you guys soon. Hey guys, thanks again. Thank you to all my patrons. This is that time in the video where I like to recognize all the people who actually make this channel happen, who support me each and every day. You guys rock. I know, right? Mox Amber. Welcome back to the end of the video. The post-credit scene. The sneak peek inside the crazy mind of the Mox Man. I've always said I didn't want to sell any. I've always said that. I didn't want to sell any. I didn't want to sell any. You know, I gave some at the 10K party. I got lots of binders here filled with them. And I'm just like, it's too much money. It's time to cash some stuff out to make sure me and my family have a little extra security. You know, I had a lot of repairs this year. This will help balance some of those repairs, pay the mortgage down a little bit. It's kind of nice. It's kind of nice. And no store can handle the amount that I have. So I'm doing it in small allotments with a few stores. I'm getting a few things together. So it's interesting. But at that trade and that value, you can't miss out on it. I mean, I am trading some in and some I'm selling. There's stuff I want to do. It'll be for another video. Don't worry.